Okay,
So,
thank you, Dilip ji. Did you want to say something more?
no, Meenakshi has a question. I mean, we will just have to please chat the questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead and send them in
Yeah.
the chat.
And at the end, we'll have some time for questions and answers where you can raise your hand and we can try to answer your questions. But let me go ahead and first start with thanking Dilip ji for giving me this opportunity. Secondly, I also want to apologize that I pushed this out for 2 weeks because I had some family issues. My dad passed away, and we had to push it without we had no alternative but to do that. And thirdly, I want to also give you all the Navre greetings, the New Year greetings. That we are still in the first week of the year, so I can still do that. Without going too much into uh, the background, I want to kind of say that this Kashmiri Shaivism was at its peak about 1,000 years ago. 1025 is when, or around that time, is when Abhinav Gupta, the greatest of the Kashmir Shaivism masters, passed away. And that time, this was at the peak, and it was really a science of Shiva. And today, in 2025, or almost 2025, we are in a stage where the whole world is kind of recognizing Kashmir Shaivism and certainly resonating with it. And when I say whole world, I mean across the whole the geography of the world. But of course, it has not penetrated deep into the consciousness of the public yet. But I want to actually go ahead and talk about why that is happening and why it's not because people are interested in our past or people want to learn about our history. It's because it's relevant for the future and the present of mankind. And that's why it's not resonating just in Kashmir or in India or some geographies, but across the world. And I want to actually use this today's introductory webinar to really try and show why that is so. And I'll also talk about my own journey of why I got into this subject in this introductory class, and why this is really part of a bigger movement uh, throughout the world where indigenous wisdom is being sought instead of all this capitalistic and not capitalistic, I should say, the um, uh, capitalistic and colonistic. I would say colonistic is the right word. The colonization that happened about 2-3 years ago, 200-300 years ago, throughout the world, and before that also, has caused the whole society to kind of move in a particular direction, which is causing a lot of issues. And we are certainly finding that this indigenous wisdom is more appropriate to solve those problems. And anyway, so that's the first thing that we are going to do today. But beyond this, I'm going to basically share my presentation so I can show you um, uh, show the outline of the courses, the rest of the webinars that we are going to have. So today, as I said, is about really showing how Kashmir Shaivism, as one of the best examples or most compelling examples of indigenous wisdom, is really becoming relevant today. And then after that, we'll have a part one appetizer where I will basically share with you uh, things that I noticed and observed in Kashmir a few months ago when I went there as part of the Kashmir Shaivism retreat, that 12-day retreat. I'm going to share what I observed there in the perspective of Kashmir Shaivism, and also share some of the rich heritage sites we have in Kashmir still there, but of course in a very bad state. Uh, next up will be the historical perspective of Kashmir Shaivism, how it developed, what were the different schools of Kashmir Shaivism, how they were different from each other. And, it's a very interesting story of how, 1,000 years ago, Kashmir was actually Silicon Valley of the world. And I'm going to show you how. And part three is going to be about how we lost all of that and how it is such a big miracle that our heritage, Kashmiri Shaivism particularly, it survived. And certain things happened in the last couple of centuries that made this miracle happen. And because it was a miracle, it's precious, and we have to preserve it. And the fourth part is going to be an overview of the key concepts of Kashmiri Shaivism. And here I want to say that, it's not, Kashmiri Shaivism takes decades to learn. So obviously in one lecture, I will not be able to do that, really convey all the concepts, but I will at least touch upon all of them. And what we are also working with Rakesh Kolji, who has a lot of fantastic network of the experts in Kashmir Shaivism, who are acharyas, who have kind of studied this for decades. And they have expertise. We are going to be developing offline a curriculum where we are going to be able to get into the depths of individual topics within Kashmir Shaivism. But we are going to cover those key concepts in that part 4. And the next up will be the shaping the future, basically how science, art, aesthetics, and ethics are being shaped or can be shaped. In fact, they were shaped 1,000 years ago, but then we lost it certainly. And the fundamental crisis that the world is facing today, we can emerge from those using these concepts that we will touch upon. And I'll show you how it's already happening. And I'll give basically some. I'll touch upon some of the things, some of the fields in science and technology and ethics and aesthetics, which are actually being influenced and can be influenced further in future. And lastly, I'm not sure whether I'll do it, but more and more I think about it, I think we should do this last experiential experiment or a quasi-experiential experiment in a meditation session or something, where we can show example of how we can traverse this journey, solving the real life problems of today, okay, using the concepts from Kashmir Shaivism. So let's see if that works. By the time we get into part 5, we'll be deciding that. So this is just an outline of what we're going to do. So, but today, I'm just going to focus on, let me see this. I'll first start with our roots. I saw that many people here are not Kashmiris. And, I want to kind of just quickly give just a glimpse of where this Kashmir Shaivism developed, nourished itself. So we have this general area of Kashmir and Gandhara, which was the historical regions. These are two regions which were very closely linked up. Gandhara being the current day Afghanistan, and Kashmir is now the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and our Kashmir. So this is the region that we are talking about, and there is a Kashmir Valley within that, which is very narrow and long valley surrounded by mountains, 18 kilometers wide and 80 kilometers long. And within that, this is my birthplace where I was born, and this is how it is kind of located with respect to Dal Lake and Nagin Lake and Achar Lake and University of Kashmir and all of that. So this is our roots, or my roots. And the context. This is the context that we're going to be keeping. So though this lecture is open and where everybody is welcome to join this, we will be basically framing our discussions in the context of this Kashmir Valley. Okay. But before going too far ahead, we are already 15 minutes into this. So Dilip ji, you are the timekeeper, but please keep note that we may be doing our questions or quizzes and stuff a little later than we had thought. Okay.
No problem.
So
No problem.
So I will go ahead, start with the disclosures, and then we'll talk about what are the objectives of this series of lectures. And then I'll just quickly go through my story about why it was impossible for me to cut my cord with Kashmir. After having been ousted from Kashmir for 3 decades, how I was trying to cut my cord, but I was not able to. And I will go through that personal journey, a professional journey, and how I found that there was a convergence between my personal journey and professional journey, and how the 21st century global compulsions were really kind of driving us towards the wisdom that we had developed about 1,000 years ago. So, first of all, I'm not a teacher of Kashmiri Shaivism. I am actually a learner in my infancy. And, people start learning, and then they start teaching, and they start composing. So it's a long journey. People cannot compose without learning and teaching. So, as you can see, I'm very early in this thing. But I just want to share my journey to inspire our community to really recognize the value and the power that our tradition has, and how its relevance for the future of science, humanities, and human evolution looks like. So in doing this, I want to first start with acknowledging that this work is inspired and informed by multitude of contacts in Kashmir, books that I have read, courses that I have done, conferences that I have been attending, and then lots of YouTube videos about leaders in science, technology, and spirituality. So particularly, I want to mention a few things like Science and Non-Duality Conference. And I have been attending that conference in San Jose, California for many years till it was actually stopped after COVID. But, 4 or 5 years, I kind of attended that, and I met lots of luminaries in science and spirituality, like Don Hoffman, Federico Fagin, Fritjof Capra, who many of you have heard about, read his book, um, Tao of Physics, and many others who I won't all name, but they're all there. And most of these are scientists or technologists or biologists or all kinds of different, uh, you know, areas which are at the frontiers of science and technology. And then Tony Seba, Kate Rayworth are outside of these networks of science and technology, science and non-duality conference that used to be held. It's also called SAND. And then Lakshmanju Academy, Lakshmanju, Swami Lakshmanju, who was the last of the living masters of Kashmiri Shaivism, who passed away in 1990s. And there is a Lakshmanju Academy of his disciples. I've been part of that. In fact, this morning I attended his that Sangha, which is every Saturday. So then I also have been influenced by work done by GKPD and I Am Buddha in 2020 timeframe. They had a series of about 31 lectures, which were fantastic. So I have kind of drawn upon that also. Subhash Kakji, who was also my professor at IIT Delhi, and so he has done a lot of work, particularly about Kashmir's relevance to science and technology. And a few people, many other people, Janakinathji Kol Kamal, who was my teacher in school, and Professor Cole and others. And then I have read some books, Tantra Illustrated, and then also listened to Dr. Timal Sina and so on. And then, of course, this committee, also the fact that this came together and like-minded people came together to discuss things. So that has also helped shape some of the work. And I've been reading National Geographic, Scientific American, and stuff, and I'm sure that I've left many others. So I want to also talk about what motivated this and what is the objective of this series. So I want to talk about Federico Fagin. Federico Fagin is the person who invented microprocessors at Intel in 1970. And he also invented silicon gate integrated circuit technology, which is still being used for making chips around the world, now mostly in Taiwan. And he also launched several companies, and the last one that he launched was Synaptic in around 1990 time frame. And what he wanted to do there was he wanted to put consciousness into computers. And he looked for consciousness literature everywhere. He couldn't find it in the Western world. and he found it in Advaita. And he did this diamond course or diamond approach with an Arab uh, spiritualist, A.H. Alamas, and who also goes to that Science and Knowledge Duality conference. And I had several encounters with him, uh, not only because I was also at Intel, but also because I was having curiosity about what he was thinking. So I met him twice and or three times. And at one point, I met and spent a lot of time with him talking about Kashmiri Pandit genocide. And after listening to him for a long time, and after listening to me, he said that, you have such a rich heritage that the modern world needs these insights. It's absent in the Western world. And you must leverage your heritage to drive a post-genocide KP Renaissance or Kashmiri Pandit Renaissance. So that was what motivated this. This happened in 2019, before COVID. And then I have been kind of thinking about what he said to me at the Science and Non-Duality Conference in 2019. And, I've been thinking about how, uh, based on my experience in semiconductors and climate action and all, how we can actually do what he was saying, and which is what motivated this work that I have been doing since 2019. And I said, we can use this to really see how this wisdom can shape the future of science, ethics, aesthetics, and art, and at the same time shape a renaissance in Kashmiri Pandit diaspora scattered around the world. Failing which, without having a rallying thing for them, our culture will disintegrate and be forgotten. And many people who are here today are not Kashmiris, and this is not meant for Kashmiris or Kashmiri Pandits. It's for everyone. So, which is why we are speaking in Kashmiri. Thanks to Alicia for giving me that bailout so that I'm not forced to speak in Kashmiri, because there's a big expectation that we should speak our Kashmiri, and there's a genuine expectation, but we're not there yet. Okay, so let me just quickly go through why Kashmir pulled me back to my roots. So personal journey. In 1990, when there was this Holocaust, when we were all kind of purged from the society in Kashmir, you know, I used to have nightmares regularly, and in 2009, after almost 20 years, my daughter actually asked me to go to Kashmir and just get this out of my system so that I can cut my cord and bring a closure to what happened in 1990. But when I went to Kashmir, actually, she went with me. She took me with her. When I went there, I returned to the US with a stronger cord with Kashmir. And then in 2010, within 6 months, I went again. I visited 11 villages, remote villages in Kashmir. Uh, and, I have put a few names here uh, and where they are. And I went to these villages and these villages were selected based on where some Kashmiri Pandits are still left, because almost everybody was gone. But I went to these places and I found that they were clinging to some great heritage sites that we had. And, I saw those physical heritage sites in those villages and where those few Kashmiri Pandit families were still living. And these villages I had never even heard of before I left in 1990. And then on my return, I linked up with Dr. Vijay Dhar, who is a very respected name in our community in the US. And he helped me connect with people on the ground in Kashmir. And we had the first incarnation of heritage program under KOA back then. And after that, I went 6 times to Kashmir. Instead of breaking my cord, I strengthened my cord. And as part of that program, we had some pilgrimages, we had some, havans, and a few, actually one mass mekhal or yagnopavit, which we did at that time. but we had to terminate that program after some time for many reasons. But uh, that was something that has been shaping my link back to Kashmir since then. And then in parallel, on the professional front, you know, I just to give a quick background, I am actually a chip technology person from um, which I studied at IIT Delhi, and I was in India for about 14, 15 years, and I was part of setting up chip plants, semiconductor plants in Chandigarh and Hyderabad. Both of them were like not really big plants, but lab kind of plants. And in that process, I also worked to some extent with late President Abdul Kalam briefly, because one of the projects that he had, one of the dream projects that he had, I was in charge of that. So I was, and he was a spiritual man and very impressive guy. So that was actually shaping my early spiritual leanings. And then I worked at Intel, microprocessors, chip technology, manufacturing, and then after 2019, after I met Federico Fagin, and started attending Science and Non-Duality Conference, I saw that there were lots of people there who I met personally, and they influenced me into in 2020 timeframe, uh, getting into climate action and trying to address whatever humble way I could address some. So I ended up retiring in 2020 and started attending these Kashmiri Shaivism Sanghas and stuff like that. So my professional and personal journeys converged to really get me to work on some of this stuff that I'm going to share in this series with you. So let me tell you something about what I saw in this professional journey that makes me think that this heritage that we have is really about future, solving the problems of the future, and how during the last 250 years or even 1,000 years, you know, uh, how this world has changed in the negative way, and why we are facing a climate crisis, and why there's a case for de-extinction of this indigenous wisdom. So April 2020 was the 50th Earth Day, and this is the time when I was kind of thinking about Federico Fagin's conversation, and you know uh, there was an issue of National Geographic, which was the 50th Earth Day issue of National Geographic, which talked about the 100th Earth Day. How does the 100th Earth Day look like? And it basically says, there was a how we lost our planet. This is what this National Geographic was all about. Then, but it was also having, that what we can do about it. That was also there, and this had a flip side. This issue had a flip side. If you turn it, it also said how we saved the planet in the 100th Earth Day, that is 2070. So 2070, how we could have saved the planet, and 2070, a pessimistic view where if we don't do anything, how this planet will be lost. And when I dug into it, I found that proof of concept exists for all ingredients needed for the optimistic view, the one on the left. But what we need, there is a strong imperative for collaboration at the global stage to adopt and scale new approaches and innovations to realize the optimistic view. And these approaches and innovations that I'm talking about is where I kind of saw this convergence with the indigenous wisdom. And I'll try to paint a picture of that quickly. So there is this lady, Kate Rayworth, uh, who in 2018 came up with this donut economy concept. This is a donut, and this is a donut here, and it has got a social foundation, and it's got an ecological ceiling, and between the two is the donut. And if we overshoot this ecological ceiling, or if we undershoot this social foundation, we get into crisis that we are facing today. This was a good model that I kind of studied after this 2020 journey when I retired from Intel and started working towards this climate action in my own humble way. And I found that we have already breached many of these ceilings, the ecological ceiling and the social foundation we have breached. And the areas where we have breached this ecological ceiling is, of course, climate, biodiversity, where we have kind of killed all the diversity and just standardized on some things just for making quick buck. And the land conversion has been done. The forests have been converted into agricultural land, and we have added so much chemical fertilizers and all with this nitrogen and phosphate loading. So that's the way some of the areas where we have already breached this ceiling. And on the other side, on the social foundation, also we have breached in terms of justice, where uh, indigenous people, for example, Native Americans or Aborigines in Australia and all have been kind of completely suppressed. And there is a gender and social inequality, health issues, political voice. There are all these areas that in the inner circle you'll see they have been breached. And by the way, the height of these breach is actually quantitative. And this in 2018 was actually done by Kate, and she's an economist, and they did this, and that work has actually kind of become standardized. And actually last month, March 2024, Scientific American had more work on this kind of concept. And they are continuing to do this quantization of or quantification of various aspects of these breaches that have happened. So it's a field which is gaining ground, and as recently as last month, this was reported in March, Scientific American. So if we want to kind of stay inside these two foundations in the ceiling, we need a upward spiral of regenerations before 2070, so that optimistic view can be realized. And this means creativity, sense of purpose, culture, freedom, leisure, belonging, and participation. This is what is required. And I will show in this next picture here that this can be done with three different pillars. And this is all based on the work that I did after I retired and started doing this climate action. That there are technology and organization, the public-private partnership between the government and all the industry that is required. But what is most important in this, and I won't go into these pictures here, but basically what I want to show you is this is actually based on the work that was done by Tony Seba, who's an ex-Cisco guy who in the Silicon Valley, who basically did this work. And he said the technology is coming along to solve many of the problems that we are facing. But we are lurching from one swan event to another swan event, where we are breaching the limits. The limits are narrowing for us in the society, and we are just oscillating between one end to the other end. And that's what you can see in the last few years. We are already seeing, we're jumping from COVID to Ukraine to Gaza to what else we don't know. And all of this, as the technology is emerging for clean energy, as the technology is emerging from AI and and biotech and all of that, all of this is happening. So there's a lot of churn happening, and both the technologies and all these new technologies are also being used in the wrong way. So this situation is going to make more and more of these swan events, which are going to cause crisis in the society. Okay, so I can actually after the webinar I can send some links, because some of these links are actually very interesting. But the last one that I said that I wanted to point out is, in addition to this technology and organization, which are important, the workforce is most important. And we need to go through a metamorphosis to really develop the new meta-humans to really kind of go from the 19th to 20th century workforce exploitation to 21st century wisdom of the workforce. So that's where this indigenous wisdom really comes about. And that's where I think Kashmiri Shaivism is well positioned. And I will actually try to paint that picture in the next mission thing. But I want to kind of show you quickly that we had to go from capitalist economy to mission economy, self-promotion to common good, consume and dump to circular economy, zero waste, and nature exploited to nature restored, and so on. So this is what we had to kind of do. And basically, this is 21st century challenges. They need 21st century paradigms, policies, and tools. And what most of our policies and tools today are from the 18th and 19th century. So we need to change them. And in shaping that, we want to play a role. So at this stage, it's more than half an hour. I want to
Oh,
pause and can do a quick quizzes, 4 questions.
sure.
Elite, you want to go ahead and do it?
Yes, I will go ahead and launch the quiz. Thank you so much. So we're at about 10:40 right now. So just keep that in mind, Vijayji.
Yes.
So this one is for scheduled for an hour. So let's go ahead and everybody, please, the quiz will show up on your screen. So we want to make sure that this is interactive and you get some pause and it's not only the content only shared. You get some time to think about it and take your time. These are only 4 questions, but take your time to see what you learned about the content and try to answer them. And then you can also ask questions in the chat window, which we have available there. So I'm going to launch this quiz, number 1 now. You should all be seeing the quiz now on your screens. Please go ahead and answer that. For this quiz, we'll give about 2 minutes a total of time so that you have time. But if you need extra time, please let me know.
Dilipji, how do you want to follow up after the quiz? Do we need to spend some time after the quiz, or do you want to jump into the next part?
So we can take a few minutes just to talk about the results here. What people have said, and maybe you can talk about it. And I'll just share with you what the results are here, and then you can talk about that briefly, and then we can go to the next one. Is that okay? So it's about 10:41. So the next part of the presentation, how long do you think that'll take?
I'll try to do it in the remaining time, but I have to give a few minutes for questions and answers.
Also, yeah.
So
Okay,
I'll try to go through this quickly.
Okay, so we have 42 of 65 people have participated. So we're already at about 2 minutes. So I'm not sure why. Yeah, about 20 some haven't participated. So we'll just end the poll now. 2 minutes have already passed. Okay, so the question number 1, we got about 18. We have a mixed result. So about 48% thought that for the question number 1, probe how chaos can shape humanity's future, was 49% answered that. There were other answers also. About 29% answered for the first question, know more about Shaivism in Srinagar. And 40% answered A and B. So both Raleigh, KP diaspora, and
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah.
You want to
So
talk about that?
A and B is the right answer in the sense that we want to do both KP Renaissance and also shape the humanities future. So it's not about really knowing Shaivism in Srinagar, because Shaivism is beyond that. Okay, next one.
Next one, we have about 67% says that Federico Fagin was the inventor of microprocessors, and then 43% said that he launched a company to put consciousness in computers.
And actually, the answer is both A and B, and actually A and C. Oh no, actually that's both of those are correct. Both of those
Both
are
of them.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then the healthy economic question should be designed to do what? And then 98% said enable a thriving society. About
Good.
4%,
That's a correct answer. Yeah.
9% said grow for shareholders, and 2% said extract resources. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are correct.
Yeah. So yeah, enable a thriving society is the correct answer. And the last one.
And the last one, the question was, why is Kashmiri Shaivism relevant for the future of humanity? About 93% said that Kashmiri Shaivism offers wisdom to solve current climate and scientific questions.
Okay, good.
93% answered that. 9% answered about the best scientists in the world, and 5% everybody seems to do that.
That is a funny answer, I guess. Okay,
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll end the poll now.
All right. So thanks for participating there. So I think you're following it, and then I want to kind of spend 1 second. I want to spend a
Mhm.
few minutes. As I said, it takes decades to learn Kashmir Shaivism, but I want to just give. It's not that difficult. It's not that complex. I want to just say that the Kashmir Shaivism really is talking about supreme consciousness. That is the only reality that there is. The only reality that there is supreme consciousness, and and all of us and everything in this world is shining in that supreme consciousness. And the moment that consciousness disappears from, let's say, our body, the world does not exist. We do not exist, and the world does not exist. So that is the only reality in the world. And this reality, supreme consciousness, is also called Shiva. Shiva is not a human being or a man and a woman or whatever. It is supreme consciousness, and it has got this. In Kashmir Shaivism specifically, it has got this Swatantraya Shakti, which means it can manifest all possibilities. It is a field of all possibilities. Shiva is a field of all possibilities. Everything is possible. Okay, and that gives us the free will. And as I said, without supreme consciousness, there's a void. And the reality as we perceive it is a real manifestation of supreme consciousness using its 5 energies. And those are called Shaktis. Actually, there are thousands of Shaktis, but 5 classes. And that gives us achieve all possibilities. That means when we say Siddhis, Siddhis are the power to achieve all the possibilities. Everything can be made to happen. And uh, when we go into the models of Kashmir Shaivism, it shows that the reality that as we see it is nothing compared to the bigger reality that this supreme consciousness is. And whatever limitations we see in the real world are not the real limitations. Okay, so and there are a few. In the interest of time, I will kind of just say that these Shaktis reside in our body, and there are these 7 chakras or 8 chakras, some people say, which are the confluence of these energies in our body. And this body is, that's why it's called Temple of Shaktis. Okay, and it's because of those Shaktis that we operate. Without that, we are dead. Okay, and recognition of this reality of Shiva and Shakti in us is the union with God, with the supreme consciousness. And when we achieve that recognition, when we recognize that reality, which we don't mostly, in our living in our day-to-day life, we don't recognize that. And that's why we get entangled in the dukkha of this world. And but achieving this union or yoga is the striving, or this desire or ichha shakti towards that is the driving force for seeking the common good in society. And uh, there are many ways that have been shown in the Kashmir Shaivism, which I have not, which I'm not going to talk about today, but there are there are 5 different limitations that obscure us from recognizing our true self. And anugrah, or the anugrah is the spontaneous dissolution of all the limitations. And in Kashmir, this anugrah word is used so often by all our grandmothers, because this is a spontaneous way of realizing our true self. Okay. And there are other means of realizing one's true self. And these are called, in Kashmir, we call them wapai, or means, upayas in Sanskrit. So this is basically high level, my takeaways about Kashmir Shaivism. And I want to say that there's a Devi Suktam, which is actually, let me just share this. I don't know whether you have heard this, but this is the hymn that I think is a very good representation of Kashmir Shaivism. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshi. So this Shakti stays in it resides in us as Shanti. Shanti is patience, but it has got so many ways of manifesting itself. This Shakti manifesting itself, the intelligence in us, the hunger in us, the energy in us, thirst in us, and modesty or faith. All of these things are there only when we have the supreme consciousness in us and the Shakti in us. Without that, there's nothing. And even the sense of abundance and all. So there are lots of different, there are actually 1,000 names of Shakti which are there in Devi's or Lalita Sahasranam. And these are all the Shaktis, these are all the energies that are residing in us, which are making us do whatever we are able to do. Without that supreme consciousness, there is nothing. So supreme consciousness is the only reality there is. That's what the gist of Kashmir Shaivism is. And recognition of this is limited by the five things, five kanchukas that we can talk about later. There's a lot more that will come in part 5, but this is the one-page thing. So I want to kind of quickly say that this Kashmir Shaivism is not only relevant for solving our problems in this climate, but also physics. Recent Nobel Prizes in 2022 and 2020, both of these Nobel Prizes were really about the relevance of this supreme consciousness in everything that is there, the reality. So Penrose got the Nobel Prize in 2020 in physics for black hole physics and all. And since that time, if you listen to him, Roger Penrose, he is talking about consciousness as foundational. He's, you can listen to many of these, and he has been working with a few others on this science of consciousness. And similarly, in 2022, the Nobel Prize went for entanglement and quantum information science. And both of these Nobel Prizes, by the way, are actually motivated by quantum computing, because this quantum information science is coming up as the next big thing. Okay. And they are all about this entanglement and consciousness and stuff like that. So more of this will come in part 4. But so it's not only climate action, but also physics and quantum computing that are actually very relevant for, or Kashmir Shaivism is relevant for these. And if you actually watch this video that I have kind of here, I'm going to send that after the webinar today. You'll find that there is so much resonance with what we are talking about in Kashmir Shaivism, and this can actually inform the next phase of quantum computing which is the next big thing. And I also want to say that, as I said, Kashmir Shaivism has no monopoly. I mean, there is indigenous wisdom coming everywhere. And there are, I won't go through too much of this detail. In July 22 issue of National Geographic, there is this North American native nations are reasserting their sovereignty, and there are examples of different native nations, re or reclaiming their lands, their ways of life, and stuff like that. And they are also trying to influence this green economy and securing indigenous people's rights in the green economy. I got a link which I can also share. And in general, global South is all victim of this extinction of indigenous wisdom, and they're all coming together and they're recognizing the value of that. And so I wanted to kind of, maybe I'll skip this one. This is also basically saying that these are values which are not only science and technology, but also economy, ecology, culture, social well-being, and all that stuff. That all this is kind of being, it's a broad thing that has to happen, that has to change. And the reason why Kashmir Shaivism is uniquely positioned is that it took about 5,100 years of Saptarishi wisdom to its pinnacle in the 11th century in Kashmir Shaivism. Basically, April 9th was a new year, and miraculously, Kashmir Shaivism survived. And we'll talk more about that. Other wisdoms got decimated. And it has got highly sophisticated models of reality and cognition, and those are highly sophisticated. And based on those models, there are these means, upayas, to recognize reality. And there are all these different uh, yamas and niyamas, which I'm going to talk about later. And then again, everything is possible. Shiva is the field of all possibilities. Shakti manifests Shiva in the real world. And optimistic view of 100th Earth Day is a great sankalp or objective to pursue, because it's a field of all possibilities, all of these things that can be done to make it an optimistic view, or make the optimistic view a reality. And it's also not a world denying tradition. It's a world accepting tradition. In fact, a householder yogi is the highest level of being. And therefore, in other traditions, Indian traditions, you know, sannyas is the way. But in Kashmir Shaivism, sannyas is not the way. Okay. And also Kashmir Shaivism is for everyone. It knows no caste, no creed. In Kashmir, uh, everybody was accepted in Kashmir Shaivism. And I wanted to lastly say that John Wheeler, who was the last of the 21st century physicists, said that one has the feeling that thinkers of the East knew it all, and we could only translate their, and if we could only translate their answers into our language, we would have answers to all our questions. So this is the physicist from the last century who said this. But I also have something. I don't want. I want to give at least 5 minutes for Q&A. But I want to show here that actually in January, I think January, Davos World Economic Forum, Farid Zakaria was having an interview with Jane Goodall, who was the chimp lady who saved the chimps from the forest and lived there with them for entire life. She talked about that there's the scientific proof that we need spiritual relationship with the natural world, both at physical and mental level. So the spiritualism is important. And lastly, um, uh, in Kashmir, we have the Shivratri that we celebrate. And I used to always think about Kashmiri rituals like Shivratri puja and all as something dark. Why are we doing it? I don't understand any of this. Why the hell are we doing this? But then when I started getting interest in this, I found that what we were saying in Sanskrit in those things was all about solving these problems. Like, for example, the last of it, basically saying Shivratri concludes with the oblation that each entity through the basically everything in the world needs to be saved. All of these things are manifestations of Shiva, and we need to save them. And I will not be able to get through all of this, but I want you to, one second. Can you hear this music?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So this was in the Kashmir retreat that I did about a few months back. And there was these people singing these songs, and they were actually saying these things. This is all happening. There are Kashmiris playing this music, and they're basically looking for God in all of these plants and everything. So supreme consciousness is everywhere, in everything. And that's what these people are saying. And that's our wisdom. I wanted to kind of close with that. And it basically say that, let's deploy the mantra, yantra, and the tantra of Kashmir Shaivism to really reshape our future constitution, or future executive and Congress and judiciary, put all the yantra that we have in our Kashmir Shaivism into those things and influence them. And Tantra is basically the governance processes, the procedures and tax code and permitting and voting and all of those things. They're all part of this mantra and yantra and Tantra system in Kashmir Shaivism. And if we use those and code our governance, we'll be able to solve the problem. And lastly, our heritage is going under. It's almost sinking, and it's time for us to save it. So that was basically, I won't have any time for quiz for the second part. Let's skip that, but open it for a few questions.
At this time, we don't have any questions in the chat Q&A window. So
okay.
Yeah, so maybe
we can raise. Yeah, you can raise your hand or something.
Also. Maybe we can post the quiz, and then maybe that will stimulate people to think, and then they can ask questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let me go back and do launch the second quiz. Okay. The quiz is there, and maybe they can think about it and answer the questions, please. Are people able to see the quiz? Oh, there's one.
Able to see?
Yeah, I do see some answers coming in. Yeah, I do see answers coming in. So we do have one question. Rahulji has asked a question about could you please suggest some reading for beginners?
Yeah, actually, what I will do is I will. So I think one of the books that I have found very comprehensive and easy is The Secret Supreme, which has been published by Swami Lakshmanju. And other one is actually too big. It's about 23 hours of Audible, but it's a very big book. It takes a long time to finish it. So I will be hesitating to suggest that. It's called Tantra Illuminated by Christopher Wallace. And these two are actually some of the best ones that I have found. But I can also provide some links which are shorter to maybe YouTube videos which are shorter to learn about this.
So Asha Cole, she has asked a question, and she's saying, can you elaborate on traditions that you said were lost due to colonialism and occupation, while Kashmiri Shaivism survived miraculously? What were some of the traditions that were lost?
So some of the traditions are, for example, the Native American traditions. There were and Aborigines in Australia and New Zealand. In fact, everywhere. Even South America, everywhere. Colonialism came and decimated everything, and they converted everybody, and they were either physically eliminated or they were eliminated because of the disease that the colonialists brought with them, and because they were taught different subjects, new subjects, their ancient wisdom was lost. I mean, the same thing happened in Kashmir. We never learned. See that I'm discovering all of this at the age of 70 because we were never taught this. It was lost, but miraculously it survived, and I'll talk about how that miracle happened later. But all others are decimated.
All right, thank you for that. Yeah, so also the Amit ji has asked if we could share the presentation, and I think we are planning to share some material, right? Through WhatsApp.
I'm sharing, yeah, I can share the material in WhatsApp, some links,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I can also post. I have posted my presentation in some location, but I have modified it a little bit. I will
Yeah.
update put the latest one there. And I don't know
And then,
whether you have a way of really making it accessible to everyone.
yeah, we'll try to, yeah, let's work on that, put that somewhere on that heritage account, and then we can share that
Yeah,
link.
if we can link that to KOA
Yeah.
We will
Yes.
decide
website.
and communicate that at the next session.
Correct. Meanwhile, let me, there's another question. Can you, Rakesh Tikuji has asked a question. Can you please provide a brief about next session, which is something that we have.
Yeah, actually, I meant to do that.
Yeah.
And so this is the next session. I want to talk about the pictures, the video clips that I collected from the next from the Shaivism retreat we had in October 23. It was very interesting and very revealing for me. Even though I had been to Kashmir 6 times after 1990, I found it so revealing because it was a Kashmir Shaivism retreat and the heritage sites in Kashmir and their rich history and the villages. I'll talk about that also next time. And so that will be just an appetizer. It will be an appetizer after today's introduction. But I want to, after that, I want to get into the historical perspective and the miracle of survival of Kashmir Shaivism, which is not well known actually. It's a story that I found most people don't know about. You know, how the Kashmir series of texts and scriptures was resurrected in Lal Mandi Center, Lal Mandi in Wazir Bagh area. That's where they were resurrected, and 78 books were published from there, which were sent to all the big universities. I want to talk about all that. I didn't know. Most people I talk to, they don't know about that. So I'll talk about that miracle of civilization survival. And then after that, of course, as I said, we'll do so the next one will be really about Kashmir, my trip to Kashmir, and what I found in Kashmir today, as far as Kashmir Shaivism sites are concerned.
An anonymous person has asked a question about there's often a debate on free will versus destiny. Is it safe to presume that in Kashmiri Shaivism, the focus is on free will?
Yes, yes, I think that's true. Swatantriya Shakti is the key in Kashmir Shaivism, and that's all about free will. So basically, you can change. I mean, whatever you call destiny, you can change it. So one presumes that, oh, we came with these genes, and therefore that's what we're destined to be. But there is also genetics. There's also epigenetics. Epigenetics is really how you can change, how it can be changed through thinking, through contemplation, and all that stuff, and exposure experiences and all real life experiences. And you can shape all that, and that's what Kashmir Shaivism, Swatantriya Shakti, is all about.
D has asked an interesting question. The question is that before we solve the world problems, the question is how can we apply these sort of in our daily lives?
Yes.
Where there's typically context switching happening.
Right. Correct. Oh, it's true. I mean, the main reason why we are talking about this is solving problems in daily lives. And if we solve the problem in daily lives and how we make our life more attuned to true reality, once we do that, we can solve the problems ourselves. And I mean, the only reality there is the supreme consciousness, and the supreme consciousness gives us the power to do whatever we want to do. And it's just that we are not tuned to that reality. And once we are tuned to that reality, we can not only solve our problems, we can solve the world's problem. In fact, there's nothing like our problems. And the last session that I said is the optional session, where we actually can walk through a real problem in a day-to-day life and show how our powers, our shaktis can be leveraged and to live a better life and a purposeful life. Like we said, all of that spiral that we showed, purpose, sense of purpose. Not only so that sense of purpose is really for the good, the common good, not selfish interest. And we're going to be talking about that as part of this, key concepts, and then see if we can do that, experiential session where we can kind of meditate through real problems in our world and show how they can be solved in a different way using our wisdom.
So Dr. Rekha Sapru has asked an interesting question, and we call it specifically Kashmiri Shaivism. Are there other Shaivism, and are we calling it Kashmiri Shaivism because Shiva is related to mountains in North India?
No, I don't think so. Kashmiri Shaivism actually is, many people say that this is a misnomer. And I see that merit. I see merit in that thing, that it's a misnomer. It's not just Kashmir. So I'll talk about 9 schools of Kashmir Shaivism. Of those, 3 schools are actually Kashmir Shaivism because they developed in Kashmir. But the rest of them did not develop only in Kashmir. They developed and flourished elsewhere. In fact, all the way to Indonesia and Vietnam, right, and Tibet. So it's not Kashmir Shaivism. It's not. It is a misnomer to that extent. But there are 2 reasons why I want to kind of call it Kashmir Shaivism. One is because there are 3 schools of Kashmir, 3 schools which are more Kashmir centric, and secondly, because I'm talking about a diaspora, Kashmiri Pandit diaspora, which is scattered all around the world. And here is an opportunity for us to really rally the whole community together around this wisdom that is, to a large extent, Kashmiri wisdom, and because of those 3 schools, because they were the highest, they reached the pinnacle, as I said, they reached the pinnacle of our wisdom, Indic wisdom. Indic wisdom means Tibetan also is included in that, the Tibetan, and even as far as Bali.
There's another question that Priyanka Shivpuri has asked. The question is about ancestral karma. What's any thoughts on ancestral karma? Thanks.
Well, I mean, this is something that I'm not, I've been studying this only for five odd years. So I'm not good at that, but there's a lot of literature and wisdom in that area. Whether that's Kashmiri Shaivism or not, I'm not sure. But there are models about those, ancestral karmas and all that stuff. And in scientific terms, you can say that it's known scientifically that our genes are shaped by 7 generations. Okay, so our ancestors, their genes have found their way into us. Okay, so to that extent, our so-called destiny is shaped by what those genes were. Okay, and when I say 7 generations, it can be from mother's side or mother's side or mother's father's side or father's father's side, and all that. So there is a lot of these ancestors who are a big funnel, and all of those genes are pulling together and making us who we are. So scientifically, that is the rationale, but our wisdom basically has models for that also, and I'm not sure what the Kashmir Shaivism model is for that, but I've heard for example, autobiography of a yogi by Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda. It talks about that. It is a chapter on this. How the various worlds that people migrate from one to other, and pitras and all that. That's.
So there's another question about: is there anything? Is this practice going to be evolving? The Kashmiri Shaivism sort of practice.
We are glad that it has survived, and what we have learned so far is only 25% of what is out there, because there are not enough people to read and translate and interpret what we have. Only 25% of it has been translated and interpreted. So it's huge wisdom. So first thing was, it has survived. The books are there. Nobody has read them. And I talked to Navjeevan Rastogi, who's a scholar in Lucknow University, who basically he was actually at Rakesh Kohl's home, and where I was with him. He said that only 25% of it has been read. And what this Kashmir Shaivism PhDs are being done right now in the world, in various universities across the globe, not in India, but across the globe. those people are actually working on those 25% literature. They are not working on the 75 that has not been touched by anybody yet.
Yeah. So Sachin Munshi is asking, was Penrose a colleague of Stephen Hawking?
Yes, they have they have influenced each other, and they were. I'm sure that they probably crossed their paths many times. Penrose is still alive.
Okay. Yeah. So an anonymous attendee is asking if we could highlight the differences and similarities between Vedanta and Kashmiri Shaivism. Is that
I'll attempt to do
covered?
that in one of the in one of those part 4, I think is that part 5,
Okay.
one of those.
Okay.
And again, as I said, I'm not an authority on that. There is Professor Timur Sena in Stony, I think he's in Stony Brook, I think,
Yeah.
who is an acharya. He spent the whole lifetime on Advaita and Kashmiri Shaivism. He's a Nepalese guy, but he's an encyclopedia of both. So we should kind of bin that as a topic for inviting him subsequently to kind of give a lecture on that.
Yeah, there's another question that's saying that are you going to be how can we actually start getting deeper into the Kashmiri Shaivism? I think you answered it before that
Yeah,
after
I
the
wish.
introduction.
Yeah, correct. I
After
mean,
this
we
introduction.
are. I'm going to go a little deeper, just a millimeter deeper. But to really get into the depth, you need decades of study, which I don't have, and that's why I'm saying that we are going to be, creating some kind of a curriculum with Rakesh Ji Kaul to then invite these scholars or acharyas, both from the East and the West, who have done a lot of work in this area. They've spent decades, as I said.
All right. And I think a quiz to answer somebody asked for. I did share the quiz to answers, Sachinji. I'm not sure if you saw that. I was sharing it. I'm not sure if I was sharing the appropriate way or were those visible or not, but I can also share those in the WhatsApp later. We have that. We will share those answers on the WhatsApp. I tried to share that here, but I ended the poll.
Do you want me to share the correct answers?
We can share that with the WhatsApp. I think we're already 14 minutes over.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah. So, but in the end, I think, do you want to have
So was
any?
it useful? Maybe we should just quickly ask, was this useful? Or do you think that this series, the way I describe it, is going to be of help?
I do see many thank you notes here, which shows that people are appreciating and that many people have appreciated and written comments in it, saying that they found it very useful and very, very thankful to it. Yeah. So there's somebody who has raised a hand. Let me see. Somebody wants to speak. Sushma Ji Kaul. 1 second. Let me unmute you, Sushma Ji Kaul. Give me a minute. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will. Please unmute yourself, Sushma Ji, if you want to say something.
Okay. Yes. Yes. I just wanted to say how grateful I am to be able to join this group and listen to Dilip Ji. It has been on my mind for a long time to know something about Shaivism. So I'm really grateful and thank you so much for doing this. And I'm looking forward to more and more sessions on this. But thank you very much once again.
Yeah, just Sushmaji, my name is Dilip Tikku. I'm the host of this meeting, but the presentation was done by Vijay Dhar ji. He's the leader of this.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Vijay ji. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sushma.
Okay,
we need encouragement.
Was there anybody else who had raised hand? I don't see it. Okay, then I think in the end, I would like to thank everybody for joining it. It's because of you that this session has become so good. And thank you for all the questions that you answered. Those questions were very stimulating, and all the quizzes that you answered there. I hope the session was good. If you have any other suggestions about how to conduct these things in future or anything that you would like to see, Please share that. The WhatsApp community has been created so that you can also follow up with any kind of comments or any discussion or any question, however you may feel like sharing, whatever you may feel like sharing. Thank you very much for attending one more time. Namaskar. See you next time.
Namaskar.